Welcome to the Darrell Walmsley Radio Show. Listen and grow as Darrell questions the status quo, encourages you to think differently, and empowers you to make a better life. Get ready as Darrell challenges core beliefs, seeks the truth, and reveals the roadmap to the lifestyle you really want. And now your host, multi-millionaire, national award-winning investor, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Darrell Walmsley.
Welcome to the Darrell Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Darrell Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is Tell Darrell Tuesday, and we have a wonderful guest with us today that has an interesting story. He went to his financial planner, and the guy said, hey, if you do everything exactly right, you should be able to retire by age 89. Now, how many of you have heard that very same story? Today we're going to discuss it, and with us here today to discuss that story and his complete reversal of role is Daryl Porter. Daryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dell, and it's sure an honor to be on again with you.
Well, let's start for people not heard you before. Tell your story about what you do for a living and how you decided to get into real estate and why. So let's bring them up from the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm a nurse, an ICU nurse, 18 years now. And my wife is a teacher, just kind of ordinary people. Good jobs, working hard, and hadn't planned for retirement. So as you said, about age 50, we hadn't saved anything. So my wife had a little teacher's retirement, working, whatever that is. And so we went to a financial planner, and she called us back in a couple weeks later and had our plan all written out and said, according to the calculations, to keep your same lifestyle, you're going to have to work till you're 89. So that was a definite punch in the gut. And I guess I was like, oh, well, this is not a good plan at all. I blame myself, though, Del. You know, when you don't do the things to prepare yourself, just kind of let life live you instead of living life, then that's the situations that I think, unfortunately, a lot of us get into. And, we are able to see a lot of people struggling in their later years, not having any comfort, not living their dreams. And so I think this is probably something you run into a lot. You see people who just haven't positioned themselves through letting day-to-day life just eat you up and thinking somehow it's going to work out without planning. And so that's where we ended up, across from the table from that lady looking at that report.
After that happened, what was your next step? What did you do with that?
So at that point, I began looking for ways that I could figure out a better plan. So actually, I started following Dave Ramsey, which probably a lot of your listeners or people out there have done also. So I started to try to work feverishly to get out of debt. And that was actually that helped me put in position when I met you in order to take advantage of the teachings that you had. So what I did for the next 2 years is I paid down the debt. And one of the odd things about when you're doing that is you start to resent. Like I started to resent my wife even spending any money. Like we'd go to the store and I would resent. There's that eat rice and beans, but then they don't never talk about the part where you start to really dislike yourself and your family for spending any money. And so that's a crazy way to live. So then I started hearing your show on the radio, and it sounded really good. Like I didn't know you. I didn't know if it was legit. You hear a lot of stuff, but for some reason you sounded like you had a solid game plan. So I actually suggested one of my nurse friends to go to your program. She did, and she was on fire. She bought a house right away, and she was totally involved. And then she invited me to the annual session that you give at NRG. And from there, I joined, came to the 2-day, and honestly, you taught me in 2 days enough to be very successful in real estate, just in the 2 days. And people won't believe that you can take just a 2-day knowledge, but your knowledge, and I already actually had a rent house at the time, but I was making no money, had no idea what I was doing. And from there, we went from one property at that time in 2017, and right now we have 15 doors.
Well, that, kind of reminds me of a saying I heard. I read it in a book somewhere that Vince Lombardi, the great Green Bay Packer coach, stated. He said, "Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect." And if you go out there and do something that's a good thing, which is to buy a rent house, and do it wrong, you can still have bad results just by doing it wrong. So let's talk about, if we can, when you came to the 2-day and you said that information you're talking about, that massive amount of information. Let's hear some of the aha moments, because you have this structural impediment in your mind that I'm doing this and it's not working. So, how are you going to tell me it's going to work if I'm already proven it doesn't work? What was the aha moments that turned it around for you?
So a couple of things. One, I'll never forget, in the seminar, you came down off of the stage and you just asked some random lady, stand up, and you gave her a hug. And you said, most of you landlords who have a property, you could never do that. And you mocked like you were giving her an eviction notice at the same time. And so it taught me, like, I'm doing business totally wrong in the sense that you've got to be compassionate, but at the same time, it's a business. And if the people aren't paying their rent, they have to go, And so I looked at it after that moment is that it's not fair for my family to pay someone else's rent. My job was to provide them a decent place to live, a very decent. You teach us to create very good houses, working class houses, which anyone would be honored to live in. That's the style that you came across, and that's what we were providing. And my people just weren't paying. I had the wrong people in there, so I switched it. That was one aha moment, and the other one is basically the calculation that you had us do, where it's showing how much our money is making for us. And I think mine was better than anyone's because I did have one rent house, but it still was like 1% or something ridiculous like that. So those two aha moments. And then the other part was, for whatever reason, I really believed I could do your plan. And so that humanized it for me. I don't know why I actually connected with you, but in that sense, you made it seem like to me, which turned out to be true, that an ordinary guy who had no real positive experience in real estate could win in real estate.
Now, when you came in, was the wife with you, or were you doing this on your own?
She was with me 100%, but not 100%. She didn't really, I think probably that same lack of belief, but she did come with me. Yeah, she was there with the 2-day. And she believed in you too. So the first one I found was actually probably on an auction site, and I bought it for $63,000. That house is worth about $130,000 now. Ended up renting that house for $1,000 a month for 3 years, 11 months, and then that tenant, she ended up finding a house of her own to buy, and so that was making me $354 a month for 4 years, my first house.
Now, did you use any hard money lending to buy these, or did you buy them straight up with
I bought them straight up with a mortgage company, so I think I put $15,000 down or something like that, and I bought it with a mortgage company. We still have that mortgage, a 30-year mortgage on it. The mortgage payment is $350 a month.
What does it rent for now?
It's renting for $1,200 a month right now.
Wow. That feels pretty good.
Yes, it does. Thank you, sir. Second one was right around the corner. Bought it for $86,000. Again, traditional financing. My mortgage on that one's $569 right now. It's worth about $170,000. So again, that equity capture has been fantastic. And it rents for $1,500 a month now. So, and we just continued on from there. I bought another one. And so what I would do every morning, I'm an early riser. I would look at every house in the market that I'm attacking. I knew every house that was for sale. I knew what a good deal was. I knew what the fixed up houses sold for. I knew what they rented for. And so when I saw something that had a lot of equity, and I knew it was just cosmetic, sheetrock and paint and flooring and putting a roof on. That's all stuff you can buy at Home Depot, and we would buy it. I have a great contractor who if he was on the radio with us, he would thank you, because of what I taught him. He went from living in a trailer to now he owns 9 houses outright, from working with me, building up our business, understanding the stuff he taught me. And then he finally took the leap after about 4 years working with him, and now he owns 9 houses himself. But anyways, I found a great contractor who could work with me and fix the houses up no matter what the situation was. And together we've grown, and that was my basic game plan, buying stuff damaged where we do capture that equity. And then I knew what the rents were, so I would do this simple formula of what the mortgage, taxes, insurance. I kept a little bit aside for maintenance, and I kept a little bit aside for vacancy for each house, so that you're not fooling yourself thinking you're making money. Because you had taught us in the seminar, these things are going to happen. The house is going to come empty, and the house is going to need maintenance. So you better put some money aside for that. So we were able to execute that plan, and I think that's key, is the execution, and that's what you taught me so much in business. It's not just owning a rent house; it's executing these plans that you had at that point for years perfected. And so that's that perfect practice. So I took I overlaid your technique on top of a city that I found that would work, and here we are today.
So let's talk about, first of all, this concept that, let's say, an average man, you, me when I started, you when you started, we're not, not brainiacs, we're not business savages, we're not super geniuses. We can go out and master a set of skills, a set of numbers that we can go back over and over and over again and complete the same transaction at a different location, and it becomes very simple. And that's kind of what you said. My first house I bought, and then I turned around and bought 3 more in the same subdivision. The next 3, in fact, were right there in the same subdivision. It's just like, I said, this is the easiest thing I've ever seen in my life. If I know I bought this one and it's a deal, anything that comes up in that subdivision that's anywhere close to that, that's a deal, right? And, I mean, it didn't even take genius. I didn't even have to put it down on a spreadsheet. I bought this one, and there's one just like it. I think I can figure that out, right? It's in my subdivision. I know what they're worth. I know what they rent for. So the simplicity of what you just explained is the complexity of why most people fail in business. They can't get it down to a simple set of facts that they can follow on a regular basis. So that's the first thing that you eloquently just explained right there on this deal, that you can master that. The second thing was that you could move as rapidly as you wanted to. There was no one holding you back, it doesn't appear, to be able to go and do this stuff. So you moved very rapidly. And I think that's another one that people can see, that the cash flows were way above the rate of return. If you take what you put into that deal and you look at the cash flow, I mean, you're talking, I'm spitballing here. It's 20, 30% returns on these things. And then your capital gains, I mean, my gosh, is over 100% in every deal, hundreds of percent maybe. Pretty simple. And so you rinse and repeat, and then you end up at this really successful spot. Now, I want to go into, when we come back from break here, the difference in buying a fourplex and how that twists things a little bit here. So that's going to be an interesting segment to go into. But before we get there, in the end of this segment, let's just do this. I think you stated here in some preliminary notes that you started with about $200,000 of net worth when you started this. Is that right, or is that what you ended up with?
No, that's right. And right now, it's just in real estate, it's well over $1 million. Thank you, Daryl.
Well, yes, there you go.
So we
200,000 to $1 million. I think that's 5 times as much. That's 500% return. So we'll take a short break. Be right back with Darrell Porter and the Daryl Walmsley Radio Show.
Teaching you with a roadmap to creating the lifestyle you really want. Keep listening. The Daryl Walmsley Radio Show returns in moments.
Need more unconventional wisdom that'll set you free? Subscribe to Lifestyles Unlimited on YouTube and binge content that will actually help you get where you want to go in life from people who are already there. With over 50,000 members and 32 years of proven success, there's so much more we want to share with you than what we have time for on the radio. On YouTube, we go beyond our shows and feature our best content from podcasts, interviews, expo, Masters Tour, fireside chats, special events, and more.
You're hearing the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Want more life-changing knowledge? Access our podcast and listen on demand at lifestylesunlimited.com under the radio tab. Now your host, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today is Darrell Porter. Darrell, just as we went to break, shared with us that he's gone from $200,000 net worth to $1 million net worth by buying houses. Now, as we come back here, I wanted to dive into the fact you bought a fourplex and a duplex. A fourplex and or a duplex, anything up to a fourplex, is considered single-family housing. Once you get to 5 units or larger, then you really have what we would call multifamily housing. So Daryl's been very careful to stay in that genre of single-family housing because it changes the rules when you go outside of that. But what did you find different? Because there are differences.
Yeah, so some of the major differences are you are having to tighten your leases in terms of not disturbing your neighbor and how your different tenants treat each other because they're all next door to each other. And so you're doing careful screening, as you taught us again in the class, and you're doing tighter leases in terms of what the demands are. And when you do an upfront interview with these people, you're kind of explaining to them, hey, everyone's kind of connected, and I don't live there, but I do want my tenants to enjoy their tenancy there and their residency and stay a long time. We've done very well with that. So many of my tenants, I'd say of the 15 tenants, 10 or 11 have been with me the whole 7 years, 4 to 7 years, depending on when I purchased the property. So the difference is mainly is that the repairs have to be they kind of coincide. If you have a tenant that calls you with an issue in terms of like plumbing, it's probably going to affect all 4. So you really need good repair people and property managers. Your team has to be basically tighter because you're dealing with, instead of dealing with just one family being in a community, you're dealing with 4 if something goes wrong with the complex. But on the other side of that, you're getting 4 incomes for that same property. So if you get a cohesiveness going and the right speeches up front when you're renting to these people, you can get a unit that's running 4 times faster than your 1 unit. So those are the 2 major differences. The lending naturally was a little bit more, but actually on the second fourplex I purchased, and people talk about these deals and those are unicorn deals, and I guess they are. My lender actually gave me $55,000 to fix I didn't even put any money down on the property. He paid for the property and he gave me $55,000 in closing to repair it. So it was one of those no money down you get because it was such a good deal, and my banker understood that too. So some people will say it was lucky, and other people will say, this is what hard work puts you in a position to do.
Luck is when proper preparation meets opportunity. So you were lucky because you were prepared to be lucky, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
Let's cover some of this stuff again. You've unpacked a lot of information here. Let's cover it. The first one is it's a different kind of tenancy because you now have your tenants living close to each other, and you've pointed that out very clearly. I'll give a perfect example of that, Daryl. You got a single-family house, and a tenant calls you up and says, hey, I've got roaches. Your answer is going to be, mighty proud of you. Have you named them yet? What are your plans for those roaches? Should I get a pet deposit? What? And because it's their problem. You have a fourplex and somebody's got roaches, you better get over there and get it done, taken care of, because otherwise you'll have 3 other families with roaches that didn't do the nasty stuff that the first tenant did to get the roaches. So you've got to save everybody else. Another one's example, guy's moves into a rent house. He goes, so do you do the yard or do I do the yard? What do you mean, do I do the yard? You do the yard. I don't have anything to do with it. Now you got a fourplex and they're all sharing the same yard. And you go, I guess I better do it because none of these guys are going to do it type thing. So there's a lot of differences that way. But what I found to be true, and you alluded to it, and so let's get closer to the numbers, is that I found that you can buy a fourplex. For example, I could buy a house for $50,000. But I could buy 4 units for $100,000, which was weird. Now, that's way back when I did fourplexes. I'm sure that it's some variable of that now. Did you find the same thing, that you could buy 4 units for just a little bit more than you bought one? Or
Absolutely. So the first fourplex we purchased was $155,000 for 4 units, and that one's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $350 now. Again, poorly run, badly damaged, but I found a banker who was willing to finance me kind of as a newbie. But I called several banks. I think I called 5 banks in that case before I found him. And what I call it is collecting my nose. So one thing that you learn, again, that you taught us is you just have to keep seeking the financing. And so what we did in relation to the being able to buy much larger properties, fourplexes, is I went online and found banks in that neighborhood, and I found the one that said he's into commercial lending. And I called him, and I called 5 that had that same banner, and they were able to. He was able to sight unseen, never had met me, approved me in one day. And so, but I took a lot of no's before that. So yes, we were able to buy, and subsequently the next fourplex for around the same price, $150, which he loaned me the extra $55,000 to fix it up. And so yes, we were able to multiply, and those incomes on those, instead of one unit, which is renting for, let's say, $1,000. Like I said, when I started, I have 4 units renting for $800. Now they're renting for $1,000. And so on a loan that's maybe 30% higher, I am generating 3 times the income in terms of rental profits every month. It's all been worth it. My wife's been able to retire. My son was put through University of Texas without any debt, all because of real estate. So I can't thank you enough, my friend.
What about the future? What do you see for your future? I know you said you have one more you got under contract right now. That's going to bring you up to 16 doors, increase your cash flow a little bit. What is your plan for the future?
Yeah, so you spoke recently that we do have 2 18-wheelers. So one of my big whys, and everyone has them, is legacy for my family, right? So my youngest son is invested with us in the real estate. So if I was to, I'm a nurse, so I see all sorts of things. If something unfortunate happened to me, because of what you taught me and what we put in place and what we worked hard on for the last 6 years, my wife would be fine. She would have the real estate. My youngest son would be fine. He's through college with petroleum engineering. He graduates in December. He's going to be fine. He has no debt. He can make his own choices. Plus, he has real estate. And my older son was driving trucks for about last 10 years, and so we started to go into business for ourselves, and we have 2 18-wheelers looking to buy a third. So he would be fine. So I would not be leaving my family in a situation, which, no one hopes anything happens, but you do want to prepare as a provider. My family would be fine in terms of finances. They wouldn't have those headaches that, unfortunately, we see so much in nursing, and what I do is nursing, that families are left desolate, are left worried about what they do, are keeping their family members alive because of the financial things that they're able to do to them alive, Social Security or whatever, not even for that person, but just for the finances, because they weren't fortunate enough to make the right choices during their course of their life. So those things are relief for me. So in the near future, we're going to continue to purchase more properties and grow with the same style, buying very damaged properties, fixing them up. I want to my long-term thing is to contribute, is to want to dig water wells in places where they don't have fresh water. So that's what I want to do on the contribution side to make the world a better place. I'm not someone that can't build a college or something, but I could spend $7,000-8,000 of the income that we have a year to dig a water well somewhere in an unfortunate place where someone can have fresh water. So those are some of the things that I want to do. I'll continue nursing. As you know, Dale, when you get a gift from the Lord that where you can help people, as you've done, you don't even know how many people just through my 6 degrees of separation you've helped in real estate, from me coming to that class, learning and helping other people, or just talking to them, mentoring them in different ways, whether they bought real estate or not. you've helped people in ways you will never know and people you'll never meet. But same with nursing, when you're able to give people a good 12 hours, and I'm really good at making people comfortable in difficult situations. Sometimes they're sick, they're not feeling good. Sometimes their families are involved, they have questions, and I'm really good at having the instincts of what people need in the nursing field. So when God gives you a gift like that, I'm going to continue to do nursing. I absolutely love it. I tried to actually stop, but I missed it. So I was in a financial position where we could stop, but I missed it so much that I went back. So I work part-time as a nurse, and I absolutely love it. So that's my near-term plans. You put me in a position to be able to financially secure my family. We're going to do some traveling and going to continue my nursing and try to contribute more to the world, help people like you have.
Well, that's what financial freedom really means, Daryl, is the ability to do what you want, have those choices that you wouldn't normally have. And, I still do seminars. Actually, I haven't done a seminar in 2 years. I'm going to do one, by the way, announcement. I'm going to do one this coming weekend, the 9th and the 10th here in Houston. So if you've ever wanted to see me, this is your only chance, because I haven't done one in 2 years. So I threw that in there. But you need to get over to our website and get signed up if you want to get there, because it's going to fill up really quick. But Daryl, when I started doing this, I went from 4 houses my first month. I bought one. Then the second month, I bought 3 more in the same subdivision. Got the same kind of excitement you did. I ended up going all the way up to 100 plus houses. And one of the things that I wondered with you, if you ever felt the feeling that like there's almost nothing to do once you have these houses rented. It's very few things that ever come up. They do now and then come up. You do now and then have to rent a house. There is a little bit of time traded for money involved in any business. But once you get up to a certain number of them, a whole lot of nothing times 15 becomes not nothing times 15 is nothing. It becomes something. And is there a volume number on single-family houses where you felt like, we really don't want to get over this volume? Or is it just a matter of taking your time, or is it a matter of not having liquid cash to move it? Now, I know you have cash because you get that darn paid in full house that I want to talk to you about. But what is it that slowed your roll from knocking out so many right away to slowing down?
Yeah, actually, I purchased a 30-unit complex in Jackson, Mississippi during COVID. And so I ended up having to sell it. Jackson had, so I made some mistakes there, naturally. So Jackson had some, they act like I was stealing $1 million from them instead of trying to invest $1 million in it. So the city fought me very hard on a lot of different changes. So we ended up selling it to another local investor who hopefully is going to do well. So no, I do plan on hopefully. I look at bigger deals. I just haven't found one that I could execute yet, or that was actually for sale in what we're looking for, which is the damaged either by hurricane, fire, or just poor management property. So we slowed down. We didn't really slow down. We did that project for 2 years. We just weren't able to finish it, so we ended up selling it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
now bad luck when you run into starting something right at the beginning of COVID, which completely destroyed the U.S. economy. I get that. Hey, thanks for coming on, Daryl, and sharing your story again. We really appreciate it and look forward to hearing more from you in the future. The rest of you out there, remember this: I'm going to be live next week. You don't want to miss that. Get signed up. Come see me. Change your life. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley Radio Show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers. The Del Walmsley Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.